Why did Black Widow wear a disguise? Because she's a spider. Welcome to Comic Book Editions Volume 254. Today, not only are we going to have an adventure, we're going to have an amazing adventure. Those are two comic book titles, one from DC, one from Marvel, that I'm working on adding back issues into my comic book collection. And that's what I have to share with you today. This is your official welcome. I hope you enjoy. We're going to get started with Marvel Comics and Amazing Adventures, Volume 2, Issue 4. This was published in 1970. John Buscema is doing the cover. So this title is a co-headliner, both the Inhumans and Black Widow, two of my favorite characters. I'm trying to collect Amazing Adventures Volume 2 from its inception, Issue 1, and then it goes Inhumans, Black Widow for several issues, then there's 2 issues of just Inhumans only, and then it becomes Hank McCoy as the Beast for several issues. So from the beginning, Black Widow Inhumans through Hank McCoy Beast is what I'm trying to complete within my collection. The Inhuman story was written by Jack Kirby, who also does the interior art. Black Bolt has freed the eye of the statue of Yin, and Mandarin goes after it, and successfully does so. So it's the Inhumans versus Mandarin in the Inhumans portion of the story. For Black Widow, Colan is the interior artist, and Black Widow is trying to convince a gang to leave the location that they've been staked out at. That was part of a multi-issue storyline. Issue 4 is up next at the end of 1970. You can tell by the cover this is a Christmas issue. John Buscema also doing the cover. I like the vertical on this cover. I mean, there's a lot going on in this cover, but this is an easy sell. If you ask me, when you look at this cover, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. The Inhuman story was written by Roy Thomas. Neal Adams does the interior art for the Inhuman story, and this is his first of several Inhuman stories that he'll do for this title. In the Inhuman story, Maximus can cause amnesia. Black Bolt finds him, imprisons him, and then leaves for America. The rest of the Inhumans are kind of split between the way that Maximus was imprisoned. And they eventually go and free him, and when they do, they find out that he has wiped Black Bolt's mind. So Black Bolt is in America. He doesn't know that he has powers just by speaking that could level an entire city. So this is the beginning of a multi-issue storyline that I think is really good. For the Black Widow portion, the astrologer's goons are hunting this hippie from Utah, and he knocks the henchmen who are attacking Black Widow off a building with him. So you do get kind of what you see on the cover coming to fruition in this story. Up next, we have Amazing Adventures Volume 2, Issue 8. 1971 is where we're at right now. Neal Adams doing the cover, and then, of course, the art for the Inhumans issue. This is still part of that storyline that I was just talking about, where Black Bolt has amnesia. He's in, the United States, and that issue, or those stories from that storyline, were collected, not so much as it wasn't in a graphic novel format several years ago, but like in an oversized comic book format. I don't mean oversized like bigger than the regular normal comic book size, but more pages is what I mean by oversized. And I showed that in Comic Book Editions Volume 106, which is archived on my channel. And that's how I originally read the story, but I'm happy to have the original issues of it. In this story, the Avengers guest star. So they're watching Black Bolt's destruction of San Francisco. They arrive at the same time that the Inhumans arrive, and come to find out when they get a hold of Black Bolt, that's not him inside the costume. Really good storyline. For the Black Widow portion, this is her final appearance in Amazing Adventures. Gerry, Conway, and Roy Thomas wrote the Black Widow story, Don Heck doing the interior art. It's Natasha and Ivan captured by the Watchlord. He's a guy that, although he's from Germany, he's targeting Germans. And he captures Black Widow and Ivan. They end up escaping. Bad news for him because a big boulder comes down, squashes him like a bug, and that's the end of him. I will say that, unfortunately, as much as I am a Black Widow fan, her stories in this title just aren't the best. which is too bad because I kind of think that they were looking at potentially spinning both of these characters off into their own long-running series, which they did the Inhumans for a while. I think that one lasted 12 issues or so. But after this, the Inhumans end up doing 2 more solo issues under the Amazing Adventures title. That ends up flipping then to the Beast as the star of Amazing Adventures. And in issue 11 is his first appearance in the title. I show that in comic book editions 63, and that's where he goes from regular Beast into the Furry Beast. This issue is issue 14, published in 1972, and it's a Gil Kane cover. Steve Englehart is the writer. Tom Sutton is the interior artist. So in this issue, Hank finds out that he didn't end up killing Iron Man like he thought he did at the end of the previous issue. He changes into his Hank McCoy disguise, his costume, because back then people didn't know, and he was trying to find a cure for this mutation. And while he's trying to find the cure, he ends up battling Quasimodo, the living computer. How I got this comic book into my collection was kind of an interesting story. Originally, I had purchased a comic book on eBay. It was a Wonder Woman foreign edition comic book that I obviously didn't have. And I purchased it on eBay, and the seller contacted me, and they said, we had some type of error, listed this book twice. We had already sold the other copy we had of this, and we only had 1 copy, although it was listed twice. So we apologize. What we're going to do for you is give you a credit if you'd like. And they gave me a credit for more money, about $15 more than what I was going to pay for the original Wonder Woman comic book. And they said, oh, we could just refund your money. And I thought, well, that was nice of them. And I took them up on the credit offer because they had a lot to choose from in their eBay store. So I ended up settling on this title. And I thought, yep, this is the one that I want because I am working on these issues. So I selected this title. Then like another day passes, and then they email me back again and they said, well, we don't have that copy either. There was some type of error with that, and we didn't have that book. But they said, however, we do have another copy of the book that's in nicer condition. And even though it's more expensive than what you paid for it, if you're okay with that, we'll substitute that for you. So I ended up getting a nicer, higher grade copy of this issue, just through, I guess, a clerical error, you could say. But I'm good with it. I love it. I need to get the rest of the issues from this story. I'm so surprised Marvel hasn't reprinted these in some type of a collection or a facsimile or something, because although I haven't read all the stories, the ones I've read certainly are really good. And for the fact that it's an important story regarding Beast, it's a key story. We're going to turn our attention to DC Comics and Adventure Comics in just a moment. But first, I do want to remind you, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I'm like 30-some away, like 32, 33 away from hitting that 1K goal. So your support would mean a lot. Sharing this video or the channel with someone that isn't subscribed is a great way to continue showing support. Thank you if you're always here watching my videos and commenting, and thank you for your friendship. I appreciate you always being here. And if you're new to the channel, I hope you're enjoying it. And thank you for helping me on my goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers, which I want to do before the year's over with. That is my goal. Also, I do want to say before we move on to the DC, that if you're a fan of the show that I do with John's Comics with Friends, JLA versus Avengers, we're going to do issue 17 coming up on the 17th. 17 on the 17th. 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, and issue 17, it floats. It's a monthly show, and it floats 1 month on John's channel, 1 month on my channel. It's going to be on my channel for this month's edition, so make sure to join us for that. Now that we're talking DC Comics, we're going to switch over to Adventure Comics. Issue 374. This is from 1968. So we have Curt Swan and Mike Espisito on the cover. Jim Shooter is the writer and interior artist. And essentially, this is one of those Legion stories where there's only 5 members that haven't been captured. And this mysterious figure contacts those 5 members in the Legion headquarters and says, if you want your members back, you have to defeat our enemy. So that's essentially the basis of the story. I will say that Jim Shooter's passing did hit me from a collecting aspect because he was on my list of people that I wanted to get a personalized autograph from. And I wanted it on a Dazzler issue 1 comic book. And I mean, I knew he did conventions. I did know he had some health issues too, but I thought since he was still doing conventions this year that, hopefully that his health was improving. Sadly, that wasn't the case, and I didn't get that done. And that really bothers me that I didn't. And there were opportunities where I could have gotten it done, but I just didn't have the extra money at the time. And I always thought I'd have another opportunity to get it done, and then I didn't. And that really bothers me. Jim Shooter heavily associated with Marvel, but they forget he really got his start over in DC Comics doing some of these stories, specifically like Adventure Comic stories and Legion of Superheroes stories. Speaking of Legion of Superheroes, that's going to be the theme for this week's Fanboys Live in the Retro Review. I'm very excited about that. We're going to do some Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes stories. J Hood Creative will be the special guest with Signature King and myself. The greatest DC comic show on YouTube is Fanboys Live in the Retro Review. It's this Sunday at 7:15 p.m. Central, 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Make plans to join us for that. This story answers a big question in my collecting. So really what I'm trying to do is collect the Supergirl headlining portion of Adventure Comics, which is 381 through 424. And out of those issues, there's 9 right now that I don't have. 403 was an interesting issue because I didn't know if I was going to do this or not. So they're in the middle of having Supergirl as a headliner when all of a sudden they just stick in a huge Legion of Superheroes reprint issue. Supergirl does make an appearance in this issue, but she's only on like 2 or 3 panels, I think, out of the entire thing. As I said, it's an all reprint issue. Curt, Swan, and Murphy Anderson on the cover. Issue 403 here was published in 1971. It reprints Adventure Comics issues 304, 305, 308, and 312. And the cover comes from the issue 312. It's a swipe from that. Plus, there is a fashion from the fans section where the readers sent in some costume suggestions, possibly for Legion of Superheroes characters. Adventure Comics 492 was down in the digest size back in 1982 when this was issued. Keith Giffen doing the cover. There's one original new story in here, and it's a Shazam story. So Signature King would like that. The rest of it is reprints. We have Aquaman 41 reprinted, originally done in 1968. We have a Supergirl story from Action Comics number 267 from 1960. There's a Black Canary story in here that was originally published in Adventure Comics 419 back in 1972. Sandman Adventure Comics number 85 is a Sandman story. That's Golden Age, 1943. Into the Silver Age, there's a Superboy reprint of issue 86 from 1961 in here. And then Spectre Showcase issue 61 from 1966. All reprinted in this tiny little digest-sized format. Those 9 issues that I need yet of Adventure Comics where Supergirl was the headliner, I don't have any to show in this portion, but I need to really work on those. And I want to try to get those done before the Supergirl movie comes out next year. I'm already starting to notice that they're starting to get a little bit more in demand and a little bit harder to find. But every once in a while, especially more when I go to like a comic show at like a VFW hall or something like that, or in a hotel ballroom or something, that's where I tend to find some of those Supergirl Adventure ones that I need. So I really want to start focusing on getting those headlining ones next. And then the reason that I'm showing these are just extra Supergirl stories or fun covers or stuff that I was just kind of interested in checking out. So that's why you're seeing those now. And one more to wrap up. Essentially, this is the throwback to my comic book editions 245, where I was asking the question in here, because this is the Adventure Comics facsimile of Krypto's first appearance from issue 210. And I said, did anyone else get have a version of theirs where there were pages messed up? I mean, in the middle story of the Aquaman story, there's a page of the Green Arrow story that's reprinted in there. Well, I did end up getting my answer, and they all were messed up. So this is a corrected copy of it, and I love my LCS. Shout out to Westfield Comics in Madison, Wisconsin. Not only did I have to ask for this, they knew that I had bought the original, that was the error version. They already had the new corrected copy pulled, and there was no charge for it, and I did not have to return my error copy. I kind of think that the error or the non-error copy will end up probably being more valuable than the error version of it, because so many people, because they did that contest win Crypto's Golden Biscuit in this issue. And this one doesn't have the contest entry in it, so it's definitely a true facsimile. I think that this non-error copy will probably end up being a little bit more rare, because who knows how many people took the time or was even aware that there was an error version of it and to get the corrected version. So we'll see what happens, but it's nice to have both versions in the collection. What did you think about what I showed today in Comic Book Editions Volume 254? Leave me a comment. I love reading those. Your comments are welcomed, encouraged, and appreciated. My back issue of the week YouTube short came out yesterday, which was Star Trek Day, so I did a Marvel Star Trek comic book for the back issue of the week. And then this past Sunday, I had the NX7062 podcast. Stephanie from the NX7062 podcast. She was a special guest on Fanboys Live in the Retro Review with Signature King and myself, and we had a bunch of fun. So she'll be gearing up for her new season kicking off later on this month. And I did leave a link for her YouTube channel in the description. So if you're not subbed up, and if you enjoy Star Trek, and she also covers some other pop culture things in her show, make sure to sub her up. I know that she would appreciate it, and I would consider it a favor as well. That's what's been going on the Magic Lasso channel. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this Comic Book Editions video. I will see you this upcoming weekend for the next Fanboys Live in the Retro Review with special guest J Hood Creative. Until then, take care and have a happy, healthy, and safe adventure. Bye for now.